somewhere neutral. Go to cars. Cars with 130, 150, 175, 200, 300 horsepower. Not because they need to do 135, 145, 150 miles an hour. Not because they need to accelerate to the quarter mile. They need to do a quarter mile in 17, 16, 15, 14, 13 seconds. It's because they need to be able to accelerate to 65, 75 miles an hour in 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. If anything that really shows what they need in a car, it's the 0 to 60 time. Okay? Not only that, but they don't want to have to floor the damn engine and drag race off the line and speed shift at RPM to get that time. Okay? The big advantage of having a lot of power, and I've said this before many times, the big advantage of having a lot of power is that you always have at least some power. At least enough power. Okay? You don't ever have to go revving the damn engine to 13K, 14K, whatever, to get it to move acceptably. And let me tell you something. The Kawi 300 wasn't even acceptably fast even doing that. It still was a dog piece of shit. I say a 600 is acceptably minimal performance because, not because one needs to do a quarter mile in 14, 13, 12 seconds, but because you need to be able to accelerate to 0 to 60 reasonably well without having to race the damn bike and do it in like 5 or 6 seconds. Sorry, my car is acceptably fast, my bike is acceptably fast, not because it will do a quarter mile in 11 seconds, because it has a 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds, 4 seconds, okay, but because I don't have to race it to do that. I don't have to race it to do that. Stupid people talk a lot of stupid shit about what everybody else needs and doesn't need. Then they go out and buy a car that is twice that fast. Have you ever noticed how fast the average four-door sedan is? What's the top speed of your average four-door sedan? Remember the days when we used to talk about cars that had 100 horsepower engines, 90 horsepower engines? Remember those days in the 70s and 80s and 90s when people were talking about fuel economy? Remember those days we were talking about electric cars that had 50, 60, 70 mile an hour range or 70 mile range and might get 100 miles? Do you know why people don't buy those cars on a large scale basis? Because they're not acceptable. They're just not acceptable, even for the average driver. Even the 80, 75, 85, 95-year-old drivers out there, and there are some out there, don't drive cars that can do 0 to 60 in 10 seconds. That can do a quarter mile in 18 seconds. That's too slow. They are already slow enough. They get killed driving a car like that. Nobody in their right mind would put an old person in a car that can't even do a quarter mile in less than 16 seconds. There are acceptable minimum performance numbers for driving cars in certain characteristic situations. Driving on the highway, you do not want to drive a vehicle that can't do a 0 to 60 in less than, I'd say, 6 or 7 seconds. Okay? The Kawi 250, 7.5 seconds. Kawi 250, 8.5 seconds. Honda 250, 8.5 seconds. Those are too slow for anything except stop and go rush hour traffic. Most roads that I know of in the Northeast are not like this. Most highways that I know of in the Northeast are not like this. Most of the time, you do not ride a motorcycle at your leisure. Maybe. I'm not sure about that either, because I'm not sure how it would work if you think you have enough gas to get there and you don't, and you're on a motorcycle versus in a car. I'm not sure. Okay? I still say to you right now, my car will flat out run rings around a a 300. But it will get dusted by a 600. That I have no question about that. My car is fairly fast, reasonably fast for a car. I say reasonably fast. Probably the average V6. Some of the larger straight 4s will beat it. But there's some cheap cars, cheap slow cars that my car will beat. No question. I would not want to buy a motorcycle that already gives up all the safety features of a car that's slower than my car. And I don't know why anybody else would want to either. I don't care if it does get 90 miles an hour. Is it 90 miles an hour really worth driving a motorcycle on the highway that can't even get out of its own freaking way? Is it really worth it? And that's before you start to look at the fact that you don't have a roof. There's no place to sleep in it. You can barely carry anything. If it rains, you're gonna get real wet if it rains. I would not want to have it, and I would not give up the speed of a 600 even for that Kawasaki 300. I would not do it. Now you turbocharge the sucker, maybe. If it's a 4 or V4, maybe. And it doesn't shudder and idle like this one did, maybe. You give me 45 horse, 50 horsepower, maybe I'd take it. Not 30. And not at redline. Not with an engine that has no freaking torque. 6 foot-pounds of torque. No. Sorry. That's not going to do it. That is not going to do it. I'm riding bikes at the demo that have 60, 70, 80 foot-pounds of torque. Okay? 150 horsepower or more. 5 times the peak horsepower. But peak horsepower only occurs at the peak RPM. Torque is everywhere. I don't need to race the bike for it to hit 50, 60 foot-pounds of torque. 6 foot freaking pounds of torque in a motorcycle that already weighs 350 pounds is a freaking joke. Sorry. But yeah. I'm 22 years old. This is my first motorcycle. I'm looking at paying $250 a month for insurance. Do I buy a used 500 or 600? Or a brand new 250 or 300? I'm buying the 600. Sorry, man. I really am. I'm sorry. It's one thing to save gas. I'd save a hell of a lot more gas if I just walked. I'd save a hell of a lot more gas if I rode my bicycle. I'd save a fair amount of gas if I had a solar paneled SUV or RV, battery powered, never ran the engine out whatsoever. I can think of a lot of ways to save gas. $5,000. I can save a lot of ways to save gas. Okay. Riding a 30 horsepower motorcycle on the highway is not one of them. No way. I'd spend that $5,000 and convert my car to electric first. You really want to save gas. That's the way to do it. Admit it. If you had a car that got 90 miles per gallon and cost $5,000, you take that over a motorcycle with 30 horsepower that got 90 miles per gallon and cost $5,000. even if it only had a range of 50 miles. You take that first. I know I would. That bike was good for riding around the beach, riding around, when we're riding around Miami, 25 mile an hour speed, stop and go traffic through, I wouldn't ride it in New York City, I know that. There's no fucking way I'd ride it in New York City, in New York City traffic. Seriously, it's a moped. It's a moped that can do 65, 70 miles an hour, maybe 100 miles an hour, but it's still basically a moped. And I do not know how to make that point any more clear. Okay? It is a moped, not a motorcycle.